Well, here's the steering shaft and steering gear, steering wheel, all that stuff. And at the bottom here, you see that there's some teeth that are just totally missing because I rounded them off, and stock mower gears lasted a good amount of time, but when it comes to the big tires up front, it doesn't cut it. So I'm gonna modify this shaft, cut the end off, weld this is 5/8, cut the end off and weld a 3/4 shaft onto this, and then I'll have a bearing, maybe a bearing or two riding on the bottom. And once I have those bearings in, then I can mount the bearings to the chassis, put this all back in, and then the 3/4 shaft will extend into the chassis a little bit more, and then I can put the U-joints off that, and that will go to the steering box. So here we have a 90s Ford steering column U-joint deal. Same aluminum U-joint, something for the firewall, spongy. It's a little crusty, but it's not that bad. These are still in really good shape. Anyway, so I took an old steering box I had, and I cut the spline part off of it, and I beveled the edges, just a little triangle part, I guess, and then it splines back into here. It's got a little bolt there, so you ram a bolt through there and it pinches it up, and that's what you hold it with. So I'm going to take that 3/4 rod, bevel the edge here, bevel the rod, and then weld this to the rod, and that should take care of most of things as far as making the steering shaft go to this. But obviously I don't need this part. It's so close from the steering rod coming out of the chassis to the steering box that I probably only need, I don't know, 6 inches or something out of this. So I'm going to cut this all up, weld it all back together. Alright, so this is a finished product of the mount, and yeah, just sandwiches in between. There's no slop or play or anything. This is relatively flush. Put some decorative edges onto it. This part will weld to the axle. Definitely got to put a bushing on the bottom because these bolts are very thick. So I'm going to mock this up under the mower and get back to you guys, because I got some clearance problems and issues, and this is a relatively big gearbox and I don't want it hanging too low below the axle beam. So let's get it mocked up and start welding stuff. Well, here you go, guys. Here's the steering box mount, and I welded it all on, and over in there you can see the U-joint. I've made up the steering shaft, and I'll show you that later. But over on the workbench, there's the steering box, and obviously it doesn't have the plate on it, but I just put that so the oil doesn't fall out. I took it and first of all I cut what I needed off, what I didn't need off, and then I put the other U-joint on here. This is the other part. Just cut that part of the U-joint off because I'll be welding a new part to it. And I made a little D kind of ring right there. And you can see that it just needed a bolt that pinches it, but I grinded the shaft so it's just like that. It came out really good. And then I cut the other part of the shaft off and welded on a pitman arm, and I got 3 holes of adjustabilities. Did a couple passes, doesn't look great, but this is some pretty good stuff. And I have a bushing that'll be slipped on here, so when this is mounted back under, I'll have a bushing. I'll have to weld a little brace and stuff to the front axle, but it'll be support from the top and bottom. So it works pretty good. I'm still just going to go off my original, what I think it's going to be for ratios, which is about 3 to 3.5 turns from wheels from watt to watt. And I think that it looks like it's going to work out pretty well. This is a metric U-joint. This is off a 90s Ford, so it's got a metric bolt, and I need to go find one, but yeah, works out pretty good. So I'm going to get this mounted back up, and I got to make a slider shaft because the suspension going, wah, wah, wah. So got to get the slider shaft. This is the rest of it, which is like 9 feet longer than I need it to be. So I'll get that made up, or at least everything all under there. But I'll show you guys, this shaft is now in. You see I got the adjustment height from the top where the steering wheel used to be, which is the same. And then the 3/4 shaft starts there. I got my snapper, that's part of a rim. There's two pieces to, two bearings I mean. Trying to do two things at once. This is the center part of the rim. I just took a hole saw, popped a hole into it, and then you see I hole sawed the frame. That's where the gears used to be. And I'll be welding that piece to the frame. And underwards, it comes out there, goes in between the belt, barely clears that and the clutch pedal, and then I'm trying to get this thing to set up. Then it will come out like that to the gearbox. There's not much in between that and that. It's probably about 3 inches, but it's coming out good. I cleaned up that U-joint too. It's all aluminum now. So get this all mocked up and show you later. Sorry man, but this is an emergency and I need that bearing. Alright, so that's all welded up. Little tack weld so the shaft doesn't fall down, and then welded the hub of bearings and stuff down there. I'll twist it around for you. Works pretty good. And I'll show you underneath. I got the collapsing arm here for when the whole thing flexes and stuff. It's about 2 1/4 inches, or 2 3/4 inch. And then that tack weld to that U-joint, and then that goes to the steering box. I just pretty much have to make the shaft from the pitman arm to the axle arm, which doesn't require too much. I already got the heim joints and everything. But I'll see if I can turn this. Yeah, works really good, I'd say. It's all tacked up on the slider there, so I still got to take it off and weld it all up. Yeah, I really I like this setup. This is all bearing up here, and yeah, gonna give you an idea what's going on here. So I'm gonna take it off and weld it all back up. Alright, so it's all hooked up. Come through there. I got this whole thing lifted up here, and it's coming through there to the slider. That goes to the steering box. And then that now has a tie rod with the old heim joints. From there to a new drilled hole there. And I'll show you how it works out. Show you with the, trying to get some good angles here. It's about 3 turns from turn to turn, so that's about full turn as much as I want it there. And then it's 1, 2, and almost 3. It's hitting something underneath. I think it's one of the heims need to be readjusted. But I'd say it's about 2.5 actually. 2.5 to almost 3. I'm not sure what that is squeaking. I think it might be one of the column bushings or something. I don't know. But yeah. And there's not too much play in it. There's probably about that much play. Yeah, so probably only about 1 inch of play, and it's a lot better from the big difference in that, so it's a lot more solid now, and I don't see why anything wouldn't work or break. It just moves down there. I still need to make that bottom shaft right there for the bushing on the ground there. But yeah, I'm really happy with this. So anywho, there's the steering on it. Alright, so the axle is flipped over upside down and obviously out of the mower. And you get to see the whole steering setup where the U-joint comes in. Right here to the slip shaft, and that goes to the gearbox and goes out of there. So anyways, I do a lot of rock crawling with this. This is kind of what I'm building this around. I think rock crawling is a lot better than mudding, but obviously I still want to be ready for the same, ready for mudding and any terrain that gets thrown at. So I'm going to be building a skid plate, and I've already have the out frame, kind of like the exoskeleton deal. I wanted to support the bottom shaft of this of the gearbox here because I'm not sure how strong the top bolts are. So in case it flexes around, I have this bushing, 1-inch bore bushing, and I welded it to here. I'm going to make some gussets for it and bolt it on so it's obviously removable, the gearbox itself. And this is kind of funky bends because it got a clear tie rod and also some funky bends to match here. I'm going to be skinning this with some sheet metal. I'm going to be running a couple more supports, like maybe off here and over there and maybe one across, but for the most part that's for protecting rocks. I didn't really feel safe with just having this, you know, the axle beam itself lower, you know, that's drastically lower, so, and I also want to support that. So make a little 2-in-1. I got a couple 3/4 inch sticks of tube and kind of cutting and bending them up. So get back to you guys when it's pretty much done. Okay, so I'm all done with that. I made the frame. I got a couple pieces coming there and there, and the bushing support, and then you can see I got some sheet metal from a washing machine and some bends, and yeah, you see it protects the tie rod pretty good. There's not too much of a chance for that. It hangs pretty low, but it's about center with the rim there, so that's about 10 inches of ground clearance. But this should take a beating. It is sheet metal, it's not like plate or anything, but I don't, you know, you can show off to your friends the trail damage, or I don't know what you want to do. Show off friends and get girls because you get trail damage or something like that. I don't know. Chicks dig trail damage. A little bit up front here, but not much. Not much. It's pretty beef. Pretty beef though. For sure protects everything. So yeah, so it's a skid plate.